Welcome to Beyond the Bar, the podcast where coffee and conversation are a catalyst for growth. If you've been searching for that coffee with a friend experience that leaves you feeling seen, met, and encouraged, you've come to the right place. So grab your cup, listen up, and together we're going beyond the bar.
Hey guys, welcome to Beyond the Bar. I'm your host, Abby. I'm so excited that you're here. Today's episode is going to be a good one. It's an actual conversation that we're taking beyond the bar, so this is really fun. But today's guest is Nichole Meister. She's a wife, mother, recent grandmother, and business owner, so I'm excited to have her on the show.
Hi, Abby.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for the matcha.
Yes, yeah. We were at the bar at Redemption and you were chatting, telling your story. And I was like, hey, would you ever come on my podcast?
Yeah.
And you said yes. So.
I did. And then I got nervous. And I'm here and it's all good.
Good. Why don't you start by just introing yourself a little bit? What do we need to know if somebody doesn't know you? Who's Nichole?
Well, I was born here. It's not really that spectacular. Married my high school sweetheart. He went to college. I nannied. We ate ramen noodles for a very long time with taco sauce on them.
Oh, I've never heard that combo before.
It's actually really delicious. Well, at the time,
I was going to say, that doesn't really match your taste now.
No. We starved and did our thing. And then his dad wanted to start phasing out of doing taxes by himself. Mm-hmm. So we bought his office. I worked a few years and, got pregnant and had our first baby. And I was home. And then I was home for 12 years, which I loved. Very hard. But I loved. And then it was football and cross country and track, and it was the whole whirlwind of raising kids, and I loved it. Dan, my youngest, went into the Army, and we were empty nesters. And then, things kind of stopped for me for a second, because I was like, I don't have a football meal to make.
Yeah.
I don't have anybody telling me what to cook. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Honestly, I had all my time that I wished for forever and ever. And then I just didn't know what to do. And then why we're here.
Why we're here.
Happened.
Yeah.
First off, our son got deployed. And that tossed me. Mm-hmm. That was what I thought was going to was tossing me.
Yeah.
And that was sort of not really an issue, but in the end, and I it was the first weekend in November, went to a quilt retreat, and I was feeling a little off. It was kind of an odd weekend. I was having a hard time kind of getting into my quilting and sewing and just even my conversations and I was having a dream, but it was like I was awake. Mm-hmm. And I had a hold of this thing on the side of my leg, on my calf. And I heard the words, "Go to the doctor now." And then I woke up and then I felt the side of my leg and there was a bump. I thought, well, God just told me to go to the doctor. And so I called Monday and honestly, went to the doctor, had an ultrasound. They're like, well, we think it's a hematoma. And the doctor disagreed with the findings, thank God, which is a pretty normal thing to have happen. And she sent me to, an orthopedic surgeon, and I see him, and right away I'm like, can you just get this thing? Like, I have things to do.
Yeah.
We're getting ready for tax season. So he did digital x-ray, and I saw it, and then I was like, oh, that doesn't probably look like the best. And he's like, we're gonna get an MRI. And we do the MRI, and it was, I got into him right away. I took the first doctor, just get me in. It was 2 days. I had the MRI on that Thursday. We're not even a week in. Things are moving along really fast. It's just boom, 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 boom. And then we have to wait for a little while to get the results. And we go back in to see him. And he's, the doctor pulls it up and I see it in an MRI form, which I've never have seen that before. it was pretty good. You know, it was 5 by 8 centimeters.
Wow.
Which is not good.
Yeah.
I don't know how I didn't feel it.
One thing that's crazy about the start of your journey here is that it was a dream. Mm-hmm. And
that's where it only just starts. The dream is kind of the more mellow part of the story.
Yeah, but it's crazy to me that you even did anything about the dream. Because, people have off the wall dreams all the time, and they don't typically do anything in real life about them or make any sort of action. So what part of the dream made you go I know you said you heard you need to go to the doctor now, but how did you know to do something about that?
Well, I don't want, this is kind of where I don't want to sound crazy, but by the time I get through this, it's going to all be a little nuts because it was God.
Yeah.
The most kindest, strong voice, man, I wanted to obey. And you don't know this side of me, and I'm not a disobedient person, but I'm very stubborn. But I wasn't this time.
There was just a sense I have to do this.
Yeah.
I want to listen here.
Well, there was a bump there. And that I couldn't ignore.
Yeah.
And I think if I didn't feel the bump, I'd be like, well, I don't want to go to the doctor and be like, God told me to come here. And I was holding some weird egg type thing on the side of my leg. So I'm here.
Yeah.
There was something there.
Yeah. Which you just hadn't noticed before.
No. And, but, as time went on, it was growing really fast.
So you get the MRI.
So I get the MRI, and he says, well, I sent a text message to my friend. We've been in each other's weddings. He's the best doctor, orthopedic surgeon that you can see at the University of Minnesota. I'm like, well, can't you just take it out? He's like, well, he's an college orthopedic surgeon. And I was like, what? What do you mean? He said, well, it's a sarcoma. The amount of fear, that you carry, because what happens. I mean, it's whether you've had it in your family or not, we don't want that. And it was my greatest fear. And I was like, okay. But he says, but, it might not be, because there's only a 1% chance that adults have that it's cancerous. And it's more prevalent in kids, not so much with adults. If adults get it, it's usually in their arms or their legs. And I'm like, okay, well, that's
1% chance is all.
1% chance. So I'm going to see Dr. Chang, this was his friend. He sent a text message. He knows I'm coming. I call. He's on vacation for Thanksgiving. So I'm not going to be getting in till around the 1st of December now. I didn't even look up sarcomas.
Really?
No. And I dissected every bug that exists. I had to know what was in everything.
Yeah.
There were years that I knew exactly what every Christmas present was because I already unwrapped them, looked at them all, folded them all back up, rewrapped them, and put them back.
Did Jay know you did this?
No, this was when I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
No. Yeah, no. When I was a kid, I just had to know what was it. Exactly. The second I had that dream, or even before, God put me in the car and strapped me in, and He was the driver. Mm-hmm. Or He had His hand on my back, and we're like, no, here, no, over here. He had me in the car. And He was the driver. So I knew it was sarcoma. I was kind of in a weird, I don't know, I would say cloud. I'm operating, I'm doing things,
Yeah. Because you're just waiting for your appointment at this point.
Yeah. We're waiting to go see Dr. Chang. And we have not told anybody. I did not want my kids to know. My son was on his way to Poland.
So you didn't tell your kids at this point either?
No. Well, this was our thought, because we've been through cancer before and knowing, oh my gosh, they're going to the doctor, you're waiting on their appointments. I did not want my kids to be like, oh, my mom, and worrying.
Yeah.
Because you know what? There was a 1% chance. I'm like, maybe they don't have to worry.
Right.
So, and that's what I kept thinking. There's a 1% chance.
Right.
There's a 99% chance that this is not happening.
Right. And well, I didn't realize it was 1%. That's so low. Like, who thinks they're in the 1%?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I get in with Dr. Chang. He does my biopsy right there. So we go home, and Jay has a fishing trip planned. And he's like, I'm not going. I'm like, just go. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and have you look at me. Tax season's coming. You need your fishing trip.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to call for a little while. My friend's like, you're not just going to sit around here. We're decorating for Christmas. We go do a little shopping, downtown, buy a few things. And I get back and I get a text message that I have test results back. I open them up and I was standing by my stairs and I literally, my world tipped. And not that my life flashed before my eyes, because it wasn't really my life, but it was my kids. And, I wanted them to be okay, and I wanted their mom to be okay. And, that's, I didn't, Jay's fishing, and I honestly wanted him to stay fishing. I didn't want to tell him, and, I called my sister, and I'm like, you got to come over. My friend was there, and she lost her mom to cancer. Well, my best friend lost her mom to cancer, and you see this fear flashing before their eyes, and
yeah,
my parents don't know, and you have to tell your kids. I had to call Dan, that was.
Who was overseas?
Yeah. He took it the hardest. Natalie, she was very strong. Tim was strong. Dan was too, but he couldn't see me.
Right.
And when, and the doctor had said, with the biopsy, he said, whether or not it's cancerous or not, your leg's coming off. Mm. That really wasn't a concern to me. That was sort of like okay, whatever. Mm-hmm. I called Jay, and he had not, told, I don't think he had even told his brother yet. Because we just didn't know if we had to.
Yeah.
And, of course, he breaks down, and he came home. Natalie was with me. You have those hard conversations. And I realized then, I wasn't scared to die, actually.
And you knew regardless you were losing your leg.
Yeah. Yeah. And
you just didn't know how severe yet it was going to be on a cancer spreading or.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we know what it is. And this is the dark time. I don't know how to explain it, but it would be, I guess the best way to describe it would be like a silent scream. I just, I realized that I don't want to be done being a mom, my husband and I have never been apart. And, I was teaching him how to do laundry,
in preparation.
Yeah, because I didn't know. And, we were getting ready for tax season, again, the tax season issue. And here I thought, well, I see people all the time. They come in and I'm like, oh, yeah, I think they do have an infusion center in Spooner. And I'll probably just go in and, maybe I can just work in the back if my immune system is that bad.
Because you're trying to figure out at this point, how do you guys continue doing business?
Yeah.
And you show up to work.
Because I'm the one that's in the hot seat. And, And, I'd bring Jay breakfast every morning and, bring his snacks and kept him going.
Well, and worked like hours at the...
Yeah. And we're a small business. I mean, we have 2 other women there and Jay and myself.
Yeah.
So and I'd be like, Jay, what are we going to do? He's like, we don't need to worry about that. Just don't. I'm like, yeah, but what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And, it was a very interesting time, before knowing, because we're waiting for the PET scan.
Which would tell you what?
If it had spread.
Okay.
I had a choice, a very intentional choice of what I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever happened. Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to have a leg. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Me losing my leg right away, in my mind, that was God's will be done.
Yeah.
And if I lost my leg, people lose their legs all the time. There's kids without limbs for the same reason of what I was going through.
Yeah.
If I was going to lose something, my leg, I think, is honestly my best option. It wasn't my eye. I have my hands. I can still cook. I can still sew. I can still garden. I can still hug my kids.
Yes.
So it was like, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah. Didn't, like, the thought of losing your leg wasn't what was hard about the situation right now.
No. I didn't need to grieve my leg. I grieved my hair like there was no tomorrow. That was harder than the thought of my leg.
Yeah.
And I had to decide how if I'm going to die, how am I going to do this? I'm like, if I die, that's God's will, but I just wanted my kids to be okay, and my husband, and I just wanted to die with grace and strength and make it as easy as possible. However that would be, I don't know, because it's never easy, but I just wanted to be strong, and I wanted people to be able to see God in whatever was happening. Mm. That was very important.
That you knew, regardless of what happened, this was going to be a grace-filled thing that showed Christ.
Yes. And
were you a grandma at this point yet?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. No. I found that out in March. And I was really excited because of HIPAA laws. I could tell all my nurses. And I wasn't allowed to even tell Jay.
That Natalie was pregnant?
Like, yeah. And that was like the first secret. I mean, of course I keep, some girlfriend secrets and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So
not a grandma yet, but you're making this decision regardless of what happens. You know you're losing your leg.
Yes.
Regardless of what happens, you're going to go through this with grace.
Yes. And I realized the amount of fear. And that's what made me mad. And that's when I was like, you know what? No. This is stopping right now. I am not having this fear. I'm not going to pass this on to my kids. This is done. Mm-hmm. No more fear. Fear is not from God. That's where the devil wants us.
Yeah.
Because then, he can spin all kinds of things and set you a ball rolling that you may never get a hold of again. Mm-hmm. Then we have the PET scan. This is when it all gets good. You go down, you're down the basement and you're in cement walls. There's no cell reception down there. And I'm sitting there and I had my earbuds in and I was going to listen to a book, and I actually tried to send Jay a text to say, hey, they said I'm going to be in here for like 45 minutes. And it didn't go through, and I'm okay, but I knew, this is it. This is when we're going to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like God turned the light on in there, and the lights didn't turn on, but I was like, whoa, he got my attention, and he said, I'm coming to fight for you. And I just had this, it was like like an umbrella that just went. And I was like, I'm going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. I just got chills.
And it wasn't, you're going to be healed. It wasn't anything. It was you. I'm coming to fight for you. I'm thinking, whoa, okay. And I actually touched my leg because I'm like, well, maybe I just got healed. Like, what's going on in here? And I touched my leg. I'm like, well, it's still there, and all of a sudden my phone dings. And it's a text message from Linda at work, and it's a song. And I open it up. I'm like, well, I just got a text message.
Yeah.
Had my earbuds in, and it was Raise a Hallelujah. And it's odd because I don't know how I never heard this song before. Mm-hmm. I honestly never heard this song before. It literally starts out with Raise a Hallelujah. And I'm going to sing in the storm. I'm coming to fight for you. Mm-hmm. I mean, this fact that I got a text message in this song.
Because isn't there a line that says, raise a hallelujah in the presence of your enemies?
In the presence, yeah. What was it? Raise a hallelujah. Oh, heaven is coming to fight for me. I'm going to sing in praise. I'm going to sing in the storm. I'm going to sing in the storm. And death is defeated. Mm. The King is alive. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. I went into that PET scan like I was honestly at Six Flags and I was going on a roller coaster. It all just literally wiped away. And I would say from that moment on, the best way to explain it, and I think when we were, at the bar, mm-hmm. I had said to you, it was like I was in a little vitamin V cap. Mm-hmm. And my legs and my arms were out and I was functioning and doing everything.
Yep.
But I was, I was in like this little protective, like a cocoon or, and it doesn't mean that I didn't cry. It does, Well,
when we were at the bar, you described that to me as I didn't know if that meant life or death yet. I just knew I was going to be okay.
Yeah. Yep. I was going to be okay. And I didn't know what God meant by coming to fight for me. Mm-hmm. Who knows?
Right. And like you said, you had felt your leg. It wasn't like, oh, boom, the bump's not there anymore.
No. And so I came out of that PET scan and Jay's like, oh, how was that? I'm like, awesome. He's like, what? And then, we get in the car and I was like, God came to me and I got this song from Linda.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, he's always very, well, we gotta, let's just see, we gotta wait. It was maybe, I don't know, it was a couple days later. It was just fast. I get the test results. And you always get your test results before they call you now.
Yeah.
It's kind of a really dumb thing.
Yeah, because you have like the online accounts. So
So, I just got out of the shower and I heard my phone. And I get out and I had a towel and, I literally ran outside. Jay, we were getting a snowstorm. That winter we got so much snow. Ran out in the driveway and in a towel. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, it didn't spread,
And what did that mean for you diagnosis-wise?
Well, if it spread, I was going to die. I didn't know my stage yet. We had my next appointment, and so this was with a new doctor now.
Okay.
We moved on from the surgeon because I was getting chemo. And they were saying, well, we're going to use the chemo. I'm like, yeah, it's good because we have an infusion center in Spooner. And they're like, well, that's not what's going to happen. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Because I'm like, well, And I had actually said, well, can't we just take my leg off right now? Like, just, your next, I know you're busy, but your next, I'll stop eating right now. I'll start my surgery fasting and we'll get this done. And he's like, well, it doesn't work that way. We need to leave it in there because what you have is resistant to radiation and chemo. And sometimes it will grow. The chemo will make it spread. I'm like, oh, okay. Doesn't that make, just cut it off. Well, we have to see how it responds. And that's why we're going to leave it in there. So you're going to be doing scans the whole time to make sure that it's not spreading, and and see if hopefully it's going to shrink. And I'm like, hopefully, yeah, it's going to shrink. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to be okay. And the doctor's like, yeah, well, we'll see. But it was very grim. I didn't realize it was as grim as until after everything, and then the doctor wasn't grim anymore. But so then I find out that my chemo was one of the harshest chemos that exist. I'm like, okay, and that I was going to have to be hospitalized for it. And it was going to be a 24/7 chemo drip. And I was going to have tubes put in my chest. It wasn't I can't even remember what it was called, but I had these tubes in my chest that came out. And my chemo went through those, and I literally had bags, like big bags of this stuff. A couple of them different. It was a couple different concoctions of things going through me every day.
Yeah.
Then the tax season comes up again because I'm like, I'm not going to be able to come in, I don't think.
No working in the back room situation like you had thought.
No. So, and Jay was like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And the girls decide we're doing it. And they did. Maybe the Holy Spirit was there working along or doing something.
Right, because you didn't hire someone to replace you.
No. I started my chemo right after Christmas. Again, I had a few things of, I don't want to do this.
Well, yeah, because this has been, beginning of November, just to the end of December then.
Yeah.
So this has only been a 2-month process.
Yeah.
A little less.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it actually went really fast. There were a few people that I knew were going through some different type of situations with other types who weren't even diagnosed yet. The one thing that I realized is what cancer wants from you and what it does to your family. It's not just you. It wants a part of everything. It wants to be heard. It wants its name said. It wants to scar you. It wants a part of your emotions, all of you. And that's what it tries to do. And that's where I also was like, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, you didn't want to have it become your entire story.
No. Whether I still didn't know. I mean, was I going to go in and have this chemo and have it blow up? I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't know what to expect. It wasn't that bad. My hair was falling out within 3 days. I thought it would have, I didn't really know.
You say chemo wasn't that bad, but you told me this was one of the worst, hardest, harshest types of chemo. And people that were going through the same kind as you were not faring as well as you were.
No. I think that was it was God. The doctors were like, what are you doing? I'm like, you're the ones taking my blood twice a day. So, I'm just here.
Yeah, because all of your nurses were amazed with how you were going through stuff.
Yeah, I was doing English paper piecing a quilt. It's called Dear Jane, working on that. And it's hand stitching, so I'm hand stitching while I'm going through this. And that, towards the end, I could only do that for about 3 or 4 days. And then the next days I was laid out.
Okay.
The exhaustion was insane. I couldn't even watch the TV. I couldn't listen to a book. I couldn't listen to music. Nothing, not even my Bible, because it took my energy.
Yeah.
And it was literally only me and God. And that was it. And I went through my life with what I call a lice comb, it got, just kind of kept combing through, my life. And it was one of the most incredible times I've ever experienced. and I'm very thankful for it. The things, the Lord's Prayer, I said every day. Psalm 23 was my mantra. I would have my hand on it. I'd sleep with my hand on it. I'd wake up and I'd look at it. And, God was my shepherd, and he had me in a car. He rounded me up, put me in the car, took me along the waters, drove me right through the valley, and we skipped death. Had me sit at his table, and you say these things your whole life, I knew Psalm 23, we all do. When you're sitting at God's table, I never thought about it, never really thought about what that meant. And all of a sudden it hit me one day. When you're sitting at God's table, you're his guest. And when you're his guest, he fights for you.
And he prepares
you.
Prepares a meal before your enemies.
Yep.
So he's sustaining you. He's feeding you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. God prepared me. Probably my whole life, but I thought back to, riding my bike, and the first time I rode, Highway 253, which all of us locals know what that is, and looking at the hills, I'm like, I'm going. Well, you go up that hill, and you go down, and you go up, and you go down, and, you do it. God was so unbelievably gracious to me. He provided my faith. Everyone's like, you're so strong and you've got so much faith. I'm like, no, it's God. It's not me. It's God.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's like, well, you need, we all have to be faithful. And yeah, you do. But I'm like, God, I need some. And he provided the faith that I needed to have in him. I mean, it's hard. I don't even really know how to explain it, but all of it was provided, everything. But it was Easter Sunday. And all of a sudden I just thought, I don't need to do this anymore. I was actually sewing down there, kind of looking at stuff, and I just thought, I don't think I need this anymore. I want to get my leg done. I want to be a normal mom when Dan gets back. He was going to be getting back the end of August. I'm going to call my oncologist and tell her that. And Jay's like, they're the doctor. They know what you need. And I'm like, yeah, but I just want to tell her I don't think I need this anymore.
Yeah.
So I called, left a message, and she called back really fast. I mean, like, it was within a half an hour, and it was her. And she's like, she was from Ecuador. And so she's like, Nichole, what are you thinking? And, and I said, I just don't think I need this anymore. And she said, well, it's pretty normal to feel like that. You kind of want to be done. And I said, oh, no. I want to kill it.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, is when I was getting my chemo, we knew it had shrunk by 50% at this time. And I could feel it shrink. Mm-hmm. And it would sit in there and it would shake and kind of have like a little spaz in there. It was throwing a fit. It was not happy. Mm-hmm. It was interesting. And at one point, Dr. Chang had said, hey, I think I might be able to save your leg. It was like right before this round 5.
Okay.
He had called and, said, I think we might be able to save your leg. And I was like, well, I didn't think that was an option because you don't leave sarcomas in there. You don't, you want to get as far away from a sarcoma as possible. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, it's a possibility. And I that shook me up because I'm like, I didn't like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, he wanted to throw that out there. And then I talked to Jay, and I just said, I don't want to keep it. I want my life. I don't want to take a chance with this thing, So I told them, no, we're going ahead with whatever. I just said, my son's coming home. I want to be a normal mom. I just don't feel like I need any more chemo.
Yeah.
And she said, you've been pretty intuitive with all of this. Let's see what happens. If anything, once we get your leg, we'll do pathology. We might have to do more chemo. And I'm like, I'm not doing more chemo. Are you nuts? I'm not coming back. No. We're not doing it anymore. I honestly felt done.
Yeah.
And so she said, okay, you'll be hearing from Dr. Chang's office, and we'll see you later. Do my MRIs, do my CAT scan, and, I made some sandwiches, and we're sitting out there watching people go in and out, and the accountant in Jay likes to count how many people go in and out of that door and how much everything costs. He's like, wow, how many people in 60 seconds come through that door, That's what he did. But
work hazard, job, hazard of the job.
So, and then we had our appointment with Dr. Chang, and I had not got my results yet. And we're sitting in there, and Dr. Chang's like, oh, and he's a little bit more chipper, a little bit, not quite as grim. And he's, everybody was really happy with the outcome so far. Yeah. It was really happy, and I honestly, I was fine. The night before that MRI, the night before, I did pray over my leg, and I just, not to keep it, but just, your will be done. Because it will. Mm-hmm. It wasn't up to me, and I knew I'm going to be okay. And that was all that I felt from the beginning, is I'm going to be okay. I know that God is a very powerful God, but I know whatever it is, I was going to be used for whatever happens.
Yeah.
So Dr. Chang's in there, and he's pulling up my stuff, and he's really quiet. And Jay and I kind of look at each other. I bend forward, and I'm like, I don't really see anything. I don't know what he's looking at. He's basically talking to himself and says, it's gone. And he pulled up, first image, middle image, and to that day. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, it's gone. And I look, and there was a blank space. And there was kind of what I guess I would call kind of like if you squeezed out a vitamin E caplet, and there was that little shell. Mm-hmm. It was just kind of laying in there. I was like, oh, my thought was, well, that means, you leave the tumor in there, because if the tumor is responding well to chemo, that means if there's any cells in my body, that they're gone. Mm-hmm. My first thought was, well, this is awesome. That means those cells are gone. Mm-hmm. I'd never had the thought. It didn't cross my mind that I could keep my leg. And then he's kind of gets up, and he's walking around, and he's like, this has never happened in over 30 years of me doing this. I've never seen this before. And I'm like, oh, okay, and then he's like, I think I can save your leg. And Jay and I are both looking at each other, and we're like, well, we didn't think that was an option. He's like, well, it wasn't, because there was a tumor in there, but now there's not a tumor. I think I can save your leg. I'm like, are you sure? Because I just was not there.
Right, because the whole time from the beginning, they said that you were losing your leg regardless.
Yeah, but there was always going to be a tumor there, because tumors, sarcomas don't disappear. They don't do that. So I was like, oh, well, are you sure? And he's like, well, I don't know. He's like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go in there, act like the tumor is still there, clear the margins, mm-hmm. and we're going to test it. If there's any viable cells above 15%, then we're going to go back, and then we'll remove your leg. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, I'm like, you know what? I'm keeping my leg. And the doctor's like, well, we don't know that yet. I'm like, I'm keeping my leg. God's not dumping me in the ditch. I'm keeping my leg. He didn't just kick me out of the car. I'm keeping my leg.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, no, the doctors, they go by the tests. And I'm like, that's fine. But I'm keeping my leg. I just knew. Mm-hmm. So it was on May 19th. I was waving goodbye to Jay, and the next thing I know, I'm waking up. And he said before, when he was explaining about if I did get to keep my leg, you may not want to keep your leg. If pathology comes back good, you may not want to keep it because I'm going to be removing nerves, your circulatory system, and a big portion of your muscle because it was in my calf muscle.
Yeah.
I was not worried about it. I knew I was going to be okay. And I woke up from surgery. I had a big boot on, and he said, you were going to wake up with the big boot on. You might have to wear that for a few months because I want to keep your foot in a normal position. I'm like, okay, I wake up, and I'm, feeling like I've never felt before, of course, and I'm moving my toes. I said to the nurse, hey, can you look, am I moving my toes? She's like, honey, you just woke up. And I'm like, basically, I'm thinking, hey, lady, don't be honeying me. Mm-hmm. Am I moving my toes or not? She lifts up the blanket. She's like, yeah, you're moving your toes. And I'm like, yeah, I'm moving my toes. It's fine.
So you kept your leg. Cancer's gone.
Yep. Well, we don't really know yet because I have to wait for pathology.
Okay.
I had my boot off very little. He said, keep it on. I slept with that on. I wanted to do what he said.
Yeah.
And even though I knew I was moving my toes, it was pretty painful.
Yeah.
Again, I haven't really had any of this kind of weird stuff that's gone on before. And it was about 3 or 4 days later, I get the pathology report, and I'm reading it, and it says, and then I'm like, okay, we all know what less than and more than sign means, I'm like, is this right? Is it less than 1% viable cells? Is this right? Even though I don't think it would have mattered if it was more than 1%, because it was still 1%. But I called and talked to Ellie, and she's like, yeah, this is a really good, pathology report. And she's like, but you're going to be seeing Dr. Chang, on such and such a date. And so I had my appointment. Dr. Chang walks in, and right away I said, I'm keeping my leg. And he's like, you're keeping your leg. He said, well, let's see how it looks, and he starts taking my boot off, and he says, hey, I just want to see what kind of motion you have, and I'm twirling my foot around like I would my other foot. And he's like, what? You're not supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah.
He's like, I took that out. You should be able to do that.
Yeah.
And he said, we don't know what to do. None of us know what to do. All the tumor boards, all the doctors, students, none of us know what to do with you because this doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. Normally, everybody gets radiation because there's a tumor that was in there, and you need to kill everything, around it. And he said, we decide we're going to leave it up to you. And I decided, I didn't hesitate to do the radiation. So, I'm not a crier until now, I guess. If I talk about this, I'm going to cry. But, I would see people happy cry or, on the way home, after the May 12th appointment, I was sitting in the car, and I was happy crying. I didn't even know I was crying. There's tears. I'm looking down, and there's tears hitting my hands, and I'm like, Jay, God did fight for me, and it wasn't like, it was how I would want it. It was me. It wasn't, I wasn't on a stage. It wasn't, I don't know how to explain it, but
He showed you in a way that would reach you.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was driving the car the whole time.
Yeah.
It was just last month I went in and, saw my radiation doctor again. And she had, was just saying, you've had a lot of intuitive experiences. And I'm like, well, and I kind of, we were walking out of the room and I put my hand on her arm and I'm like, it's not intuitive, right? It's not me. It was God, right? You know that, right? Mm-hmm. And she's like, yeah, we all know that, but it's just what we have to call it. I'm like, okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Just want to make sure. Just make sure we're on the same page.
It wasn't me. It was nothing to do with me.
Yeah. So after this experience,
Yep.
if you could go back and tell your younger self one thing,
What would it be?
what would it be?
Don't be fearful. And trust. We've all had things that happen in our lives, and I think if I just trusted and didn't have fear, there would be a lot of things that would be a little easier.
Yeah. So our last question.
Yeah, okay, what was it again?
What is one thing that you want to be remembered for?
Oh, yes. I have always loved God since I was a very young girl, and so I would like to be remembered as, being a woman of God and just a wife and a mom and a sister and an aunt, and a grandma. Mm-hmm. I just want to, hopefully they remember how I was there for them, whether it's a recipe or, life questions,
Yeah.
Yeah. I do, maybe how fast I like to go on my bike.
Add that.
Yeah.
Someone say that at the funeral.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your story.
Yeah.
I think there's so much hope in, obviously, like you've mentioned, I think cancer is something that's touched a lot of people's lives. There's probably not somebody who can't say they haven't known somebody, and not all stories have ended in miracles like yours. But I think they're encouraging and hope-filled. And you said something earlier in the episode where you said from the very beginning, you knew you wanted to go through this gracefully, whatever that meant, whether it was death on the end or it was living. You wanted to go through it gracefully, and you wanted it to be a platform to be used to give glory to the Lord. So we're on the other end of that story, and by God's grace, it's the one where you live and you get to be a grandma and do recipes and have grandma days and be a mom and a wife. But well done.
Yeah.
Because you did walk through it with grace.
God gave me the grace.
Yeah.
They really did. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
And it's still, I still have a lot of knee buckling days where I am on my knees because I am so thankful. And there's another layer of the onion, that's getting peeled away.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah. Well, because we're all on this journey of growth.
Yep. Whatever it may be.
And thankfully,
life's not perfect.
No, and you've got years left of growing.
Yeah.
How exciting.
I know.
So I can't wait to see you on 253 going up those hills while I'm in my car.
I know.
Because I will not be on a bike.
I came out of K, on one of my rides, and that hooks up to 253 and one hill. And I'm like, maybe I should go up that. I'm like, I better head home. But it will be soon.
On the journey, and I love it. So thank you for sharing that part of yours with me and us here at Beyond the Bar.
Yeah, and I love it. And I got to drink a matcha in a super cute cup that I love.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, there'll be plenty more of them over the summer.
I love it. Well, thank you. Yeah. Thank you guys for being here. It's always super fun. Hopefully it was encouraging, and we will see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Beyond the Bar. Make sure you hit subscribe so that you never miss a conversation. And to check out more of what Redemption has to offer, and to join our email community, head over to our website at redemptioncoffeehouseandroastery.com.